My husband left me alone when I was about to have our baby to go to his sister's big wedding. I caused problems in his sister's relationship by revealing the truth about things she lied about. I'm a 35-year-old woman married to my husband, Andrew, who is 39. We've been married for 7 years and we have a 5-year-old daughter. I'm also 7 months pregnant. I'm sharing this because I need to talk to someone and being anonymous helps. Andrew is very close to his family, especially his mother and sister. I noticed this when we were dating, but it didn't bother me then. His family was always nice to me. After we got married, I realized just how close he was to them. They're like a tight-knit group of friends. This didn't affect our marriage, but I would just roll my eyes at how they acted like a little gang and then move on. At social gatherings or parties, they usually sit together and criticize others. They tried to get me to join in their gossip at first, but I'm not into that kind of talk, so I stayed out of it. They didn't mind, and neither did I. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law weren't very warm or friendly towards me, but they usually kept their distance. I also tried to avoid them as much as possible because I didn't enjoy gossiping about people behind their backs and pretending to be nice in person. After I got pregnant with my first child, I stopped visiting my in-laws' house. I wanted a reason to cut them off, and besides, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were toxic. My husband was kind and gentle, but when he was around his mother and sister, he changed completely. As long as he treated me well at home, I didn't mind him spending a few hours with them on weekends. I gave him that space. When our daughter Sarah was 3, my in-laws started telling her that I was a bad person. But Sarah stood up for me, cried, and said I was good. She came home and told me what had happened. My husband just laughed it off, saying they were probably teasing her. But I knew they meant it. Since then, I have never left Sarah alone with them. Things started to go downhill last year when my sister-in-law started dating a wealthy businessman from Scotland. It made sense that she was thrilled to have such a man interested in her. But I couldn't understand why my husband was so excited about it too. It really puzzled me. To give some background about my in-laws, my father-in-law retired years ago and now lives in his ancestral farmhouse in the countryside. I've only met him a few times, but he's a no-nonsense person, unlike the others. That's probably why he moved out to find some peace. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law don't work and live off the rent from one of my father-in-law's properties and the allowance he gives them. My husband also gives his mother part of his salary as an allowance. I've always been self-reliant, so I don't mind Andrew giving some money to his mother. Coming back to the main point, ever since my sister-in-law started dating that rich man, her attitude got much worse. She started acting like a princess. She would show off the expensive gifts her boyfriend gave her at family gatherings and social events. She made sure everyone knew how rich her boyfriend was. The funny part is, my mother-in-law also acted like a teenager, giggling with my sister-in-law. Their behavior really annoyed me, and it showed on my face. It's not that I'm jealous. Why would I be? The issue is, when my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were living on a small budget, they never tried to show off or look down on me because they had nothing to brag about. But now, with her rich boyfriend, they subtly tried to put me down and hinted that I was jealous of them. They didn't say it directly, but I could tell from their body language, and some relatives also confirmed it. Soon after this, I got pregnant with my second child. Thank goodness this gave me an excuse to avoid visiting my in-laws. Andrew would insist that I let Sarah spend time with them alone, but Sarah wouldn't agree. Even though she is only 5, she doesn't want to be with them. Some might think I turned my daughter against my in-laws, but kids have a good sense of what's real and what's fake. My first pregnancy was difficult, and I was put on bed rest, but my in-laws never visited to check on me. This second pregnancy has been easier, but now they visit often, not to see how I'm doing, but to show off their new jewelry, trendy clothes, or expensive bags. My sister-in-law constantly brags about her boyfriend's wealth and their plans for a grand wedding in Scotland. I just nod with a fake smile and think to myself, good for you. A week ago, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law showed up unexpectedly. They started praising my cooking, with my sister-in-law saying she loved the apple pie and bacon donuts I had made. Instead of feeling happy, I became suspicious. I asked why they suddenly remembered desserts I had made years ago. They were surprised that instead of thanking them, I directly asked what they wanted. My sister-in-law said she had been craving apple pie for a long time and couldn't find any restaurant that matched my baking. So they wanted me to make some for her. I thanked them and explained that I wasn't feeling well, and baking would be too much effort with my pregnancy and a toddler to care for. They wouldn't take no for an answer and kept insisting. Finally, I said I would try to bake it when I felt better. For the first time since my wedding, my sister-in-law hugged me and said she wanted it by Sunday. I didn't say anything more or realize why she specifically wanted it on Sunday. To be honest, I didn't plan on making it at all. I said I'd try just to get them off my back at that moment. As the week went on, I was so exhausted with my pregnancy and taking care of Sarah that I completely forgot about it. On Friday night during dinner, Andrew told me he would be busy over the weekend because my sister-in-law's boyfriend and his family were coming for dinner that Sunday. I was shocked. Everything made sense. The sudden praise for my apple pie and bacon donuts, and why they wanted them on Sunday. I know my apple pie is really good, but that doesn't mean I'd fall into their trap. I told Andrew about his mother and sister's visit and their request for the desserts. He explained that his sister's boyfriend and his Scottish family have a sweet tooth and had heard a lot about American apple pie. They wanted to taste an authentic one. Andrew then let slip that his sister had boasted she could bake the best apple pie and promised to serve it at the family dinner. I was aghast. I told Andrew there was no way I was going to do all that hard work in my condition, especially when someone else would take the credit. On top of that, I wasn't even invited to the dinner. Andrew said his mother thought I'd be uncomfortable in front of the guests since I'm 7 months pregnant, so they didn't invite me. Even if her intentions were genuine, why didn't they mention the dinner when they visited me asking for dessert? Andrew went to pick up his father on Saturday and said he would return home on Sunday night after dinner. Although I wanted to make a big deal out of it and argue with Andrew, I chose to keep my peace, knowing that nothing I did would stop him from attending the dinner on Sunday. I deliberately turned off my phone and locked myself in my room with Sarah. I guessed my mother-in-law and sister-in-law would try to contact me, and when they couldn't reach me on my cell phone, they left a voicemail on the landline. I ignored those calls too. Even though I wasn't entirely at peace knowing they would be angry with me for backing out, I felt satisfied that I didn't give in to their demands. On Monday morning, when I turned on my phone, I saw it was flooded with missed calls and voice messages. The messages started with pleas and ended with curses once they realized their messages had been delivered. I received a call from my mother-in-law, and it turned out to be the longest monologue I've ever heard. I always knew her true colors, but that day I got a taste of her bitter tongue. She blamed me for ruining their dinner party and called me a witch. Apparently they thought I would provide dessert, so they didn't prepare or order any, as my sister-in-law wanted to pass off my food as hers to impress her future in-laws. So the sweet-toothed Scots left the dinner table without any dessert, feeling dissatisfied, and I got the blame for their disappointment. While my mother-in-law cursed me over the phone, I couldn't help but imagine their awkward faces at the dinner table. I couldn't help but wonder why it was such a big deal. They could have just ordered something from outside. I know my sister-in-law boasted about her cooking skills, but even restaurant-made desserts could have saved them from embarrassment. Anyway, that's not my problem. I told them the same and hung up the call. Among all the messages from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, there was one late-night message from Andrew saying he wouldn't be back that night. He'd return on Monday after work. When Andrew returned home that evening, he was quiet but not angry. I tried to explain what his mother had said to me, but he stopped me, saying he didn't want to get involved. He said I should consider myself lucky he wasn't scolding me for embarrassing his family the night before, so I shouldn't expect him to support me against his mother and sister. I couldn't believe it. I didn't take his mother and sister's words seriously because I knew they were being cruel. But what was Andrew thinking? First of all, he should have stood up for me when I was excluded from the family dinner. How can I be blamed for ruining an event I wasn't even invited to? Since then, we haven't spoken. Neither of us has made an effort to resolve things. Although part of me feels like I'm done with them, I also can't help but wonder if I really damaged their reputation by refusing their request. I'm just not sure anymore. Hey everyone, it's been 2 months since I last posted. I'm almost ready to have my baby, just about to pop. After what happened in my last post, I realized I've been too patient with my husband. About 2 weeks after that, I went for a checkup with Andrew. On the way back, I tried to talk to him about what happened, but he told me to forget about it and focus on my health. He seemed normal again, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something. Then this morning, I woke up to find Andrew packing his bags. He was trying to fit his wedding suit into one of them. I was shocked and asked him why he was packing. He said he was going to Scotland for his sister's wedding. I was speechless. I bombarded him with questions. When did this happen? Why wasn't I told about it? And how could he leave me on my due date? Yes, I'm due tomorrow. He tried to avoid my questions or give short answers. I told him he couldn't just ignore me like that. I was feeling angry, hurt, sad, and shocked all at once. Can you imagine your husband leaving you alone with a toddler when you're about to give birth? It's hard to put into words. I won't lie, I wasn't calm. I held onto his shoulder and pushed him for an explanation. He said the trip was planned last minute, and he had to go because his sister's in-laws insisted on that date, and he couldn't do anything about it. But he could do something about it. He could skip the wedding. While we were talking, the doorbell rang. Andrew hurried to answer it like he was expecting someone. It was his mother. She came in shouting at Andrew for being late. She took his bags and said he didn't need to pack the rest because they could buy whatever was missing in Scotland. Her words felt like a mockery. I wanted to scream at her, but I realized it was too late to stop Andrew or argue about it. So I went back to my room, threw the rest of Andrew's packed bag in the living room, and locked the door. I could hear my mother-in-law cursing me loudly before they left. That's when I realized why Andrew had been acting so secretive for the past month. I thought he was just torn between me and his family. I was in a lot of pain, both mentally and physically, crying my heart out. The noise woke up my daughter Sarah. She came to me, hugged me, and said I would be okay, and that I should be excited because we would soon have a baby in the house. Her innocent words melted my heart, and I hugged her back. We spent the day playing in bed, trying to keep ourselves distracted. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling of being abandoned by Andrew in this condition. I keep breaking down every now and then. I've called my sister to stay with me tomorrow because I don't know when my labor will start. I had to make this update today because what happened is weighing heavily on me. Please wish me a healthy and peaceful labor. Update. Hello everyone. I know it's been months since I last updated. First of all, I want to thank you all. I'm blessed with a baby boy. Thank you for your support. That day after my post, I logged into Facebook and saw Andrew happily posting pictures of himself and his family having a great time in Scotland. I couldn't hold back my tears. It was past midnight, and Sarah was fast asleep. I went to the bathroom and let myself cry. I had been holding it in all day in front of Sarah. I cried for almost an hour. I was about to faint when I realized my water had broken. I somehow made it to the living room to call an ambulance. I have a very vague memory of what happened next. The next thing I knew, I was in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. When I started to feel better, I called out Sarah's name. The nurse said they found her crying beside me while I was drifting in and out of consciousness. Since the house was empty, they brought Sarah along with them. She was sitting in the front with the paramedic. I was relieved that my daughter was safe. Within a few minutes of arriving at the hospital, I gave birth to my baby boy. The nurse said they tried to contact Andrew, but his number wasn't available. My sister arrived in the early hours of the morning. She lived 120 miles away. When she found out what happened, she scolded me for not calling her earlier. I thought I had more time. She also told me to get rid of Andrew as soon as possible. Since the hospital staff found me in that state, they informed the police. The police asked if my husband had abused or assaulted me because they thought I was abandoned in that condition. I told them the truth. I wasn't physically assaulted, but mentally and emotionally, yes. Andrew was charged with negligence because his actions endangered 3 lives: Sarah's, my unborn baby's, and mine. It gives me chills to think about what might have happened if I hadn't called the ambulance on time. I'm so grateful to God that He kept us safe. I was discharged from the hospital 2 days later. My parents had also arrived. They lived 2,500 miles away. They were determined to sue Andrew and his family for mentally torturing me during my pregnancy. They packed up my things from the house while I was still in the hospital. I didn't want to stay with Andrew anymore, and who would want a husband like that? After being discharged, I went to my hometown with my parents and sister. It was almost a week after giving birth that Andrew finally returned home. From his Facebook posts, it seemed like they extended their stay in Scotland after the wedding to explore. It amazed me how carefree he seemed, enjoying his vacation while his wife was due during that time. He didn't even bother to call or text me. I didn't bother him either because I had plans to take legal action against him and his family. A week after his return, he found an empty house, a divorce notice, and police charges waiting for him. He had a week to appear before the police and give his statement. He panicked and called me 100 times. I won't lie, I enjoyed seeing him desperate, leaving endless voicemails pleading for forgiveness. Soon my mother-in-law also called, begging me to talk to them. I told my parents about it, and they called Andrew, demanding he come to our house. He flew down with his mother that very day. My parents humiliated them both for what they did to me and threatened to ruin their lives. Andrew insisted on talking to me alone. He begged for forgiveness and reconciliation, emotionally manipulating me by saying our child needs a father and shouldn't be deprived of happiness. I asked him about the gender of our second child, and he stayed silent. My baby boy was already a week old, but his father didn't even know he was born. Is that the kind of father a child needs? His mother also begged for forgiveness, saying that these court cases would damage their reputation in front of their new relatives, my sister-in-law's in-laws. But I didn't care. I found her reason laughable. When they were asked to leave, they insisted on seeing the newborn, but I didn't want their negative energy around my children. My father escorted them out of the house. Meanwhile, I reached out to my sister-in-law's new husband on social media. We had never met before. To my surprise, he was also suspicious of Andrew and his family for keeping me away from the family dinner and the wedding under the excuse of my pregnancy. I told my sister-in-law's new husband everything that happened to me. He was surprised to hear that Andrew was enjoying himself at the wedding while his wife was in labor. Even though it was too late, he asked me about my sister-in-law, and I told him the truth about her behavior and the apple pie incident. He said their actions seemed suspicious, and now it all made sense to him. Apparently, my sister-in-law had been pretending to be a chef, and my mother-in-law had been backing up her lies, claiming they owned restaurants in the countryside. I revealed that his new wife had never even cooked a simple meal. He called her a gold digger and promised to keep our conversation confidential. I told him I didn't mind if he revealed that I had exposed the truth. In fact, I wanted them to know it was me. It's been 10 months since that day. My divorce was finalized last week. I received enough alimony because of maternal and child negligence, mental torture during pregnancy, and safety concerns. I also got a share in the house because I had contributed when we bought it. I've given Andrew 3 months to pay my share of the house, or it will be put up for auction. Plus, I'll be receiving child support too. The plot thickens. After my conversation with my sister-in-law's husband, I received angry texts from her, accusing me of ruining her life. Later, I found out that her husband had conducted an investigation into my in-laws' background. The truth came out that they weren't as wealthy as they pretended to be, and my sister-in-law had lied about many things, including her job. According to some gossiping relatives, the Scotts sent my sister-in-law back and filed for divorce. They accused her of money laundering, claiming she had been stealing from her in-laws' safe and sending the money to her mother. Her husband called her a gold digger because she had taken thousands of dollars from him while they were dating. I can't help but enjoy this juicy gossip with a sip of wine. I wish the trio, my husband, mother-in-law, and sister-in-law, a happy gossip-filled life in their newfound poverty.